What's going on, guys? Thanks for stopping by. So we've had now a few days to digest what we heard in Tesla's earnings call for Q1 2023. And I wanted to dive into the different aspects of what I learned, from the good, from the bad, to everything in between. So let's go ahead and dive in really quick. So I wanted to start off by taking a look at the hard truths and then transitioning over to what the easier to digest truths are regarding where we currently are with Tesla and the macro environment. So with the hard truths, I think at this point, in my opinion, the way I see things, a recession is pretty much imminent. We're either in one right now as we speak, or we're at least headed to it. And if we are, it's probably going to be a hard landing. I think the hard thing to kind of really gauge is where unemployment is going to be, considering that we're still at pretty historic lows regarding unemployment. So it's really hard to say that we are in a recession because of that one huge factor. And so once we actually see unemployment start to tick up, lots of people losing their jobs, which it seems like you're seeing at least for white collar workers, I think that's when you're really going to start seeing the headlines indicating that in fact we are now in the midst of a recession. So what potentially caused this recession? So I'm no economic expert, but I think we can all safely assume or presume that the hike in interest rates from the Fed over the last 12 to 18 months have really put a lot of pressure on the economy. It goes without saying that the aggressiveness with which the Fed has increased rates, I think 20-fold now over the last 12 to 18 months, that has put a lot of strain on the economic engine. And so hiking interest rates to where now you're seeing home loans and auto loans hover around 7 or 8%, that's obviously going to put a significant slowdown on folks' enthusiasm to want to buy either a car or a home, because of the fact that, one, they know that at some point in the future, rates are probably going to be significantly lower than they are now. So why buy now when they can wait and save potentially tens of thousands on interest over a 30-year mortgage, or even just thousands of dollars on interest for a 6-year auto loan, for example. So unfortunately, Tesla is not immune to this sort of impact, considering that their bread and butter right now is selling vehicles. So right now, even with the recent price decreases that Tesla has had to try to offset the increase in interest rates, that's still not going to be sufficient enough for folks to want to purchase a vehicle at this point in time, considering all the uncertainty there is. And particularly considering that folks don't know how the job market is going to pan out. So that's another factor that's going to affect Tesla's earnings over the next 12 to 24 months, is the possibility of job loss. So if there are folks that think, hey, there's a chance that I might lose my job, considering that a lot of white collar tech workers, for example, are losing their jobs left and right. If the Fed continues their aggressiveness with raising interest rates, this could potentially have an impact that is far more permeating than what we thought initially. So I'm just going to play my cards close to the chest, not spend money, save some cash, just in the event that there are mass layoffs and I have to buy myself 6 to 12 months to hopefully find a new job. I'm just going to save money now, put it in an interest rate, a high yield interest rate account where I can get 4 to now almost 5% yield per year. So I think those two main things, the possibility of job loss and just interest rates being pretty sky high compared to where they were even just 2 years ago. Most folks are kind of just waiting on the sidelines, waiting to see what happens. Is the Fed going to slow down? Are they going to continue to aggressively raise rates? And if so, will that continue to permeate into expanding job losses across the economy? So of course, this is going to have a pretty significant impact on Tesla's financials over the next 12 to 24 months, perhaps. We know that Tesla's not immune to what happens to the macro. However, I think this is probably a good phase to enter into, knowing that in CY23, pretty much every company you can think of is going to take a bath financially, so to speak, and really take significant hits from all the headwinds we're dealing with from a macro environment. So if anything, I kind of look at this from an analogy perspective. I kind of look at this as like, you could be the healthiest person in the world, but if you're exposed to several sick people around you, there's still a decent chance that you're going to get sick yourself. And so despite Tesla having pretty solid execution from a strategic standpoint, continuing to ramp up production, continuing to reduce costs, all the good things that fundamentally are going well for Tesla, they're still not going to be able to dodge the bullet of folks wanting to save money, folks not wanting to deal with higher interest rates, folks potentially losing jobs over the next 12 months. So nevertheless, Tesla's still going to have to deal with the headwinds that the rest of the economy is dealing with. Okay, now let's get into the easier truths and kind of the easier things to kind of digest regarding Tesla's recent earnings. And the first thing that I like to think about is Tesla's mission. This is what I feel like keeps me grounded as a long-term investor, knowing that Tesla is still continuing to execute on their mission despite whatever financial impacts there might be from the macro. So remember, Tesla's mission is to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. That has always been the goal from day one. Regardless of what financial impacts there might be, the goal has always been to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. At whatever cost it might be, we need to make a dent to the impact that we've made ecologically to the planet. So what elements contribute to Tesla's mission? So let's start listing them off. The first one is production. It goes without saying that Tesla is continuing to focus on ramping production, regardless of where that pricing adjustment might be month after month. Their goal is to really try to ramp up production so that they can, at some point down the road, get to that target of 20 million vehicles per year by 2030, 2035, whatever it is. Even if that comes at a cost, Tesla wants to get as many vehicles out there as possible to really walk the walk and not talk the talk of accelerating the world to sustainable energy. That's really the bottom line. Ramping up production, regardless of what sort of environment you're in. And as you ramp up production, and because of economies of scale, you're starting to decrease your cost, that enables Tesla to have a significant pricing power versus the competition. Whatever the competition might be, they have significant pricing power. And so that's the next element in Tesla's mission, is having that affordability for the masses to be able to buy their product, because you can't really accelerate the world's transition if your customers can't afford your product. And so you need as many people to be able to purchase what you're selling for your mission to come to fruition. And so thankfully, Tesla has a position in which they're able to dial up or down their pricing depending on how demand is fluctuating, so that they can continue to pump out vehicles at a reasonable cost. So bottom line here is, if they continue to ramp up production, the cost curve continues to lower and your pricing power continues to expand. So you can almost continually drive down your costs. And according to Elon, per what he said on Twitter Spaces a few months ago, where he's willing, and I don't know if this was just rhetoric or he's actually means this, but he's willing to bring down margins basically to zero on a Tesla so that they can continue to not only produce, but deliver vehicles at an affordable price. That has always been the goal, affordability for the masses. Of course, Wall Street and short-term thinkers might not appreciate that very much. They might think, hey, why not just advertise? I never really gotten the big deal with advertising. Even if you advertise today, let's just say Tesla spends 100 million on advertising, which is still peanuts compared to the rest of their OpEx. Even if they were to advertise, you would still have to advertise in a difficult environment where interest rates are still 8%. And most folks just don't want to deal with that sort of interest rate. Most folks are financing, of course. They don't just have $40,000, $45,000 in cash laying around that they want to put down. Even if they did, they would probably rather save it just in case of job loss, like I said earlier. So the way I see it is, even if they were to advertise and perhaps get more eyeballs on your vehicles, it's still doesn't fix the fact that we're in a high interest rate environment that most folks really aren't too interested in taking out loans that are hovering around 8% interest rates. So anyway, bottom line here, affordability. Tesla has always wanted to make their cars affordable. And also recall, in 2019, I think the Model Y was still less expensive than it is now with the most recent price cuts. So I don't understand why people are making such a big deal about this, but let me know in the comments as to why people are making such a fuss about advertising. So anyway, the next thing that I want to talk about is safety. I think most folks probably already know by now that Teslas are, if not the safest, one of the safest cars on the roads. Just a couple examples of a few months ago, a family of four, a guy was literally wanting to drive off a cliff with his family inside. And despite I think it was a 400 to 500 foot drop, everybody survived. And so I think that's a testament to how Tesla always puts safety first when it comes to designing the vehicles. That is also part of Tesla's mission, is to not only accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy, but in fact also save lives. So anyway, that's safety. And the last thing that I wanted to point out is full self-driving and the Robotaxi at some point. So to know that you are pumping out vehicles, selling vehicles at a fairly affordable price, and effectively get data collectors, i.e., your millions of cars that you're selling and that are currently driving around the streets right now, and they're sending back data so that you can continue to refine and continuously improve your full self-driving technology. That is the key takeaway here. is that this plays into the Robotaxi opportunity down the road of, hey, the more cars you have out there, at some point you might be able to essentially flip a switch and effectively have a Robotaxi fleet out there as well. I think in the recent earnings call, they also stated that Hardware 3 will have the ability to be a Robotaxi and not only just Hardware 4. So the fact that you already have millions of Teslas out there collecting data on a day in and day out basis, sending it back and getting refinements and improvements on a regular basis to FSD, which again kind of aligns with the safety aspect of it, where at some point you'll be able to send your kids to and from school without you having to drive and almost guarantee that they're going to be in the safest vehicle they can be at the time. I think that that's also very bullish, is knowing that, hey, Tesla is willing to take margin hits so that they can increase safety, so to speak. You can almost make that connection. Is like, hey, the more cars we get out there, the safer people are going to be on the road. I feel like these are sort of the things that people don't realize and it just kind of flies under the radar. But for me, as a not only a long-term investor, but to know that at some point I would want all my own vehicles to be Teslas because of how safe they are and how I want my children to be safe. I don't understand why these sort of things aren't more at the forefront of why people consider even investing in Tesla, for example, or just being a supporter of Tesla's mission. Not even from an investment standpoint, but just why not support the cause? Why not support the mission? I don't know. Maybe I'm just not smart enough to understand the complexity of it, but anywho, to each their own. Okay, so what are my recommendations on how to kind of deal with the current environment that we're in and how we're going to continue to deal with over the next, 12 months at least, is to kind of relax, to don't worry. This is all fine. I mean, look at this guy here. You've all seen this meme. This guy's in good spirits despite the world burning around him. I think the same thing goes for us Tesla supporters, Tesla investors, especially for long term. Just know that despite the hell that we might be going through right now macroeconomically, Tesla's still executing. Tesla's still working on ramping up production, increasing affordability for folks, and at some point really making a dent in accelerating the world's transition to sustainable energy. At some point, we're going to be back to the glory days of having reasonable interest rates. The Fed is going to stop being so aggressive, and hopefully by 2024 and beyond, find ourselves in a much more robust economy where jobs are coming back, inflation is tampered, and we're back to kind of the good old days of feeling pretty confident about where we are from an economic standpoint. So anyway, that's just kind of my take. But yeah, nevertheless, just wanted to hop on here for a little bit and just talk about my point of view and how I digested the earnings call and how I still think that this is fairly bullish considering the dark times that we might be going through economically. But nevertheless, I think at the end of the day, once we come out of this on the other end, we're going to be glad that we kind of stuck with supporting Tesla along the way and seeing how they're able to, in fact, deal with tough times and just come out stronger on the other end. So anyway, thanks again, guys, for watching. Really appreciate you stopping by, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.